Thanks for watching this video. I wanted to explain some considerations that you probably need to understand after you've been in a car crash with somebody who doesn't have car insurance. If the at-fault driver has no car insurance in Texas, what are the consequences, or what are your options? And unfortunately, there's not a lot of good options. But if a lawsuit is filed against that uninsured at-fault driver and you win, you get a judgment against them for causing the crash and an award of money for the damages, because that person was uninsured at the time of the crash, after you have a judgment, you can turn it over to the Texas Department of Transportation, and they will take that uninsured driver's license away and suspend it until they make good and pay the judgment that was entered against them for the damages they caused to the victim. So, what is involved in filing a lawsuit against an uninsured person? Well, it costs money and it takes some time. We typically will do the work for free, and if we get lucky and maybe find some insurance, that's possible. But there are costs to filing the lawsuit, getting the other driver served, and then depending on what happens when their answer date becomes due, do they file an answer? Do they have an attorney? Is there going to actually be a trial, or did they just ignore it? And is it a default? Most of the time it goes to a default, and we just ask the court at that point for a judgment for whatever the consequences were. And with that final judgment, either after a normal trial or after a default, is what we can then send to the Department of Transportation, and they take away that person's driver's license. And sometimes I've had those people come back a year or 2 or 3 later when they need their driver's license and they want to enter into some sort of payment arrangement. So if that happens, then you'll get some money from them, but it's hard to count on it. And it's going to cost maybe, $500, $700, $1,000 or more to litigate your case against this uninsured person. And there's a good chance that you're never going to get paid, either because they don't own anything. In Texas, if we have a judgment, say of $500,000 against a person, we can't garnish their paycheck. We can't foreclose on their home if they've homesteaded it. And we can't take their first $50,000 or $60,000 worth of personal property. So the reality is most people in Texas who are driving around with no car insurance aren't worth suing because they're judgment proof. They don't own stuff sufficient that if you got that judgment against them, there's nothing that you could go and take to cash in and pay that judgment. So it's often spending good money after bad. If you file a lawsuit against this uninsured person, you're probably not going to get those costs back. You're going to get a judgment that you can hang on your wall, but it's never going to turn into dollars. So is it worth doing? That's a decision that only you can make for yourself. But I want you to understand that there is a remedy under the law. Yes, we can sue them and we can get a judgment, but it's probably not going to turn into money for our clients afterwards just because we can't collect on anything that the at-fault driver has. So it's a judgment call. We'll do the legal work for you and not expect to be paid, but we can't also pay the litigation costs. So typically we expect $750 to cover the filing fees, the service fees, and after that, if there's a default, it will turn into a judgment and there'll be no additional costs. But if it turns into a full-blown trial, it can get expensive. So every case is different. But talk to us further about the situation and we'll do whatever's right for you.